Okay, good morning everyone, and welcome back to another week of Tehillim. We find ourselves coming from a beautiful Yom Tov of Shavuos. When Klal Yisrael is Makabel the Torah, we receive the Torah upon ourselves with simcha, with joy, nasiv and nishma. We will hear, we understand that the only thing that is going to give us any sense of direction, any sense of morality, any sense of fulfillment in our lives is going to be the Torah itself. And so with great enthusiasm, Klal Yisrael stood by Har Sinai, and we said Nasiv and Ishma. And I'm sure that everybody in their own way had a beautiful Yom Tov. I hope, Im Yirtzeh Hashem, even though still we weren't able to be with all of our family members, we didn't invite guests to our home yet. The shuls, some of them are open, many are not open, even the ones that are. Either they're in backyards or they're partially open. You have to sign up to become part of the minyan, so we're not yet back to normal. And although that we're not yet back to normal, Klal Yisrael continues to strive and to thrive, and we grow in our ruchnius and our spirituality. We grow in our commitment to Torah and to mitzvahs, and we continue to try to become the best Yehudi, the best Jew, the Mamleches Kahanim v'Goy Kadosh that we speak about on Shavuos, the best of the emissary of Hashem that we possibly can. And what a disappointment, I would say, to leave the loftiness of Yom Tov last night only to see the lowliness of the world that we are living in around us, to see the destructiveness of the American people, and this is our country that we claim to be so much a part of and so much a supporter of, to see how law and order is disregarded, to see how instructions and authority is something of the past, to see how people can go literally like wild animals running around the world doing whatever it is that they would like to. All in the name of justice, all in the name of truth, all in the name of showing people what's really going on in the world and how things should really be running. And of course, it's all a farce, it's all sheker v'chazav, it's all horribleness and destructiveness. It's all anger and hatred and people that one of my Rabbi once told us years ago. It says in the Haggadah that if Hashem Himself would not have redeemed Klal Yisrael from Mitzrayim, Anu v'neinu v'nei b'neinu, we and our children, our grandchildren, all the generations, we would still be meshubadim leparo b'Mitzrayim. We would still be enslaved to Paro in Mitzrayim. And he asked the question, how is it possible? Every other nation in the world that ever was an Eved, that ever was a slave, they've all been redeemed. They all went out of their shackles and their fetters, and they all end up going into some kind of freedom which they live in the world today. How is it possible that the Am HaNivcha, the chosen nation, Klal Yisrael, had it not been for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself redeemed us, how is it possible that we would still be avadim, we'd still be enslaved to Paro today? Certainly at some point, the whatever that organization is that comes along and makes everything, says everything is racism, and everything is everything is not appropriate for bigotry. The United Union, whatever it is, the United Nations would have come along at some point and they would have said, you know what, Nebuch, the poor Jewish people, they're slaves so long already in Mitzrayim. Okay, you know what, we're anti-Semites, it's true, and the Jewish people, we hate them, but you know what, it doesn't make us look good after thousands of years that the Jews are slaves to Paro. We're going to redeem them and free them. Somewhere along the way, Klal Yisrael would have been freed. And yet the Haggadah is being made as testifying, if Hashem Himself would not have taken us out, we still would have been slaves in Mitzrayim. And so my Rebbe said over the following idea. He said, one of the aspects of Geula, of redemption, of freedom, of leaving the shackles of slavery And becoming a free man means that you believe in your heart of hearts that even though for 100 years or 200 years or hundreds of years you were under the shackles of slavery and you were enchained under those conditions, but once that you become free, you are a ben chorin, you are a free person to go and live your life however you want to. And all of the psychological damage that a person had from being a slave, it goes away from you because you realize you have now walked into the world of freedom. No one's hunting you down anymore. No one's over your back. No one's watching what you're doing. You are able to go and be as free as you would like to be. The nature of the world, said my Rabbi, is that as you look at many of the nations that have gone from slavery to freedom, they simply cannot lose the slave mentality. And even though they might be successful, they might be progressing, they might have a lot of people that are running around in schools and on film and in their cars and doing and being and producing and all the different things that they do, putting the basketballs in the hoop and so on and so forth. The slave mentality that a nation develops when they are underneath the oppressive rule of a leader or a nation that is unkind to them and that is cruel to them, that is something that they have a hard time breaking free of. And if Klal Yisrael would have left Mitzrayim under the same pretenses, where the United Nations would have come in at a certain point, or some organization would have started up, and they would have said, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, the Jews don't belong to be slaves for so many hundreds of years. And the Egyptians would have no choice but to bow to the pressure, and they would have released us. We would have carried around with us the slave mentality for the rest of our lives. And we never would have been able to overcome that and become the Am HaNivchar, the chosen people who are free to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We'd always be shackled by the psychological and physiological and emotional, spiritual chains that the Egyptians placed upon us. I think that we are witnessing in the world just how true these statements of our sages really are. Because one man comes along and he commits a heinous crime. One white man comes along and he kills a black man, which is a heinous, it is a ridiculous and a pathetic excuse for someone that would like to be deemed part of the human race to go and murder somebody with his own flesh and his own hands and his own knees and kill somebody and think that he could just get off and there's nothing wrong with that. That is not appropriate, and that is something that we cannot be civil, we cannot be able to handle such a thing. And he deserves punishment. But one man commits one crime. And so you suddenly have an entire world that is going absolutely crazy, crazy beyond belief, to the extent that they are killing and looting and damaging and destroying and inflicting fear and pain and hatred and anti-Semitism and all the different things that are going on right now in our country. Does that make any sense in the world? If a person was once a slave and they never had the schus to leave the slave mentality, so then whatever it is that we witness with our eyes, whether you are brave enough or foolish enough to turn on the news and to see the horrors of what is going on in the world, just to see, the Gemara says that it's asur li'istakil b'pnei harasha. You're not allowed to look at the face of a wicked person. And the Gemara doesn't say why you're not allowed to look at the face of a wicked person. Okay, maybe it's not so good for you. Maybe they don't look nice. Maybe it'll scare you. Why can't you look at the face of a wicked person? So if Dessler writes over there in that Gemara, he says, because it will be mekalkel and mekarer, it will destroy and it will weaken your yirah shamayim, your fear of Hashem. When you will look at someone whose face protrudes wickedness, you will see someone whose face is against and antagonistic against Hashem. You will see somebody whose insidious actions, he's completely enveloped and in so many terrible, wicked things in this world that are the anti-Torah, anti-Hashem, anti-Ruchnius actions. So whether you are aware of it or you're not aware of it, looking at that face that represents something that is against HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah, it will end up cooling off the Yirah Shamayim, the fear of Hashem that you have inside of you. Watching the videos and turning on the news and seeing the atrocities that are being committed in the world today, and seeing how they just disregard authority, destroying police cars, beating up police officers, killing innocent people in the streets with their own bare hands and guns and so on and so forth. Watching all these things, besides the fact that it should make a person who's sensitive to human life, it should shake us up to our core and should make us cry over the fact that that's what's going on in the world. So a person has to understand at the same time it's damaging to the very fiber and the very core of our neshamas, of our Yirah Shamayim, of our sensitivities to Kedusha and to Tahara. All of these things are such filled with tumah. They're filled with brazenness, with kas, with anger, nivel peh, foul language. It's even unconscionable that Torah websites could even post on their websites pictures of the shuls that were vandalized when there's foul 4-letter words that are written on them for everybody to be able to read and see, and videos of people cursing in the backgrounds. Unconscionable. You're sharing that with the frum world, and a frum person has to hear and has to see such things. It's makalkel, it ruins and damages the ruchnius, the spirituality that we have inside of ourselves. It's hurtful and it's painful, and it should pain us. The altar of Kelm was once walking with one of his chaver, one of his peers, and they were walking through a marketplace, and he saw two carts of Jewish salesmen, and one cart was empty and the other one was filled with straw. And the owner of the cart that was filled with straw happened to walk away from his cart for a while, and he wasn't there to guard the straw that was in the back. And the other salesman, with his empty cart, looks around in all directions, and he sees that no one is watching, and he begins taking out straw from his friend's cart, and he steals it and he puts it into his cart, and then he drives away and he heads off to go and sell it and make some money. Now the altar of Kelm, it's a fascinating story because we know that in Kelm, they rarely ever lifted their heads up, Dalit Amos. They didn't look around them to see what was going on. When they walked on the street, they didn't look. They weren't into sensationalism. Trust me, they wouldn't watch the news programs with all the sensational stories that are there to see what's going on in the world. It would be enough if you would hear about it. You don't have to see all the pictures and all the images. They didn't look around them. And that's the way that it worked in Kelm. Somehow, this Maisa, the altar of Kelm, must have sensed something that was going on, and he lifted up his head for a moment and he watched this story unfold in front of his eyes, where he saw one Jew take from the cart of another Jew, steal it into his cart and drive away. And when the altar saw this, he went into a very bad mood, which was uncharacteristic. His name was Simcha Zissel, which means, I think Zissel is a lashon of Zis, which means he was the man of happy sweetness, sweet happiness. He was always with a smile radiating. Even though he was not well physically, he didn't have much money. He had the pressures of the yeshiva and the world pressures on him all the time. It didn't bother him. He was a man of tremendous bitachon, of tremendous trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he was always happy. And suddenly when he sees one Jew steal from another Jew, he gets depressed. He gets sad. I don't say he got depressed, but he got very sad and very quiet. And his friend that was walking with him realized that something happened over here. And they walked through the marketplace. And at the end of their long trek, his friend turned to me and says, "Nu, Reb Simcha Zissel, why are you so forlorn? What's the matter?" He says, "You watch one Jew steal from another Jew, and you could be happy? You're not going to be sad? You're not going to be upset. It's not going to pain you. How could a person just watch injustice in the world and not be in pain? We are part of the nation of the American people. We hope that we can say that we are Jewish before we say the word American. We just happen to live in this country over here. But doesn't it pain us when you see such horrible images? When you hear what is going on the streets? Those of us that live in the valley, we are distant from what's going on. But my wife spoke to a good friend of hers last night who lives in the heart of the Lebray area. She said the entire Shabbos was a Shabbos of fear, of pachad, because there were sirens and there was screaming and there was yelling and there were police helicopters and there were battle cries going on the streets. Take a picture from the aerial view of what the streets of Lebray look like this morning. It looks like a war zone hit over there. Doesn't it bother us? Doesn't it hurt us? Doesn't it make us question and ask, where is mankind? Where has humanity sunk so low? We're coming off the greatest Yom Tov of Klal Yisrael. The Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yossi, who was one of the greatest sages of the Gemara, Rabbi Yossi said, Lo nitin Yom Tov Yisrael. There wasn't a greater Yom Tov for Klal Yisrael than Shavuos, than the day that we received the Torah. Because if it wouldn't be for the day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, he said we would not be any different than any other nation that is out there on the streets. I would be like any Yossi, any Joe in the shuk, in the marketplace, said Rabbi Yossi, and therefore he would celebrate immensely on the Yom Tov Shavuos more than Pesach, more than Sukkot. He made the most delectable meals. He had the greatest covet for the Yom Tov, because he recognized that the only thing that makes us different from the rest of the world behaving the way that they behave and getting into the sensationalism and watching it, being glued to the TV to see, oh my gosh, how could they do? Is that what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants? That a frum yid should sit in front of the television for the last 12 hours of their life? Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants action. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants mitzvahs. Hashem wants us to be misakin and to work on ourselves, not to be drawn into the filth of this community, of this world that we live in over here. And Yossi, the great Amor of the Gemara, said, would it not be for Shavuos, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, we'd be like everybody else. We'd be glued to our 80-inch plasma TVs. Oh, it's terrible. It's a shanda. It is a terrible thing. Oh, but what does the Rebbe Shem want from us? He doesn't want us to sit there like a couch potato for 18 hours straight, feeling how miserable and how bad we should feel for the whole world. How could they do that? How could they? Hashem wants us to recognize that we are Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. We are a nation of Kedusha. We are a nation of hierarchy. We are a nation of Kedusha, of Torah, and of mitzvahs. We have a special connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Hashem wants that when there's so much destruction, and there's so much choshech, so much darkness, and so much tumah, impurity, and anger, and violence, and everything that this world is filled with right now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to combat that with the exact opposite. He wants light, He wants Torah, He wants mitzvahs, He wants Yiras Shamayim. He wants us to focus in on the things that are important. We're just coming from Yom Tiv, Shavuos. We just received the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to hold on to that glory, not to wipe away the Yiras Shamayim and the Kedusha and the Tahara and the Neshamadik feelings that we have from a Yom Tov that's so glorious, that would it not be for that day in history, my dear friends, we would be no different than any other nation in the world. I'm not saying that we would go around looting and disregarding authority and blowing up police cars and killing innocent people in the streets. We probably would not go that far. But we also wouldn't be people that are just going to sit around hovering away in the corner, watching the news, listening to the TV, and hearing everything that's going on and trying to figure out when we'll be able to open the doors again. COVID-19 was bad enough. Now we can't even walk outside of our door because it's a war zone out there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not appreciate words. HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not appreciate fear in his nation. He doesn't appreciate a lack of amun and bitachon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants during these times that we continue to do what is right, and those are the maisim toivim that only Klal Yisrael can perform. The maisim toivim of chesed, the maisim toivim of learning, the maisim toivim of our tefillah, of our prayers, the maisim toivim of working on ourselves, getting deep into the kishkas of who we are, to know what we have to make better for ourselves, to be a mashpia on ourselves and people around us. We know the famous story with Rav Yisrael Salanter. Rav Yisrael Salanter was a giant. We are peanuts. We are nothing compared to Rav Yisrael Salanter. He was a giant of Ruchnius. And he looked at the world and he saw the world was combusting, it was falling apart. Klal Yisrael had sinas chinam. The Jewish people were mean to each other. There was lashon hara on the streets. People weren't learning Torah. Those people that learned Torah, they were being disgraced. The world with all the winds of war that were going on, and all of the wildness of communism and the haskalah, the enlightenment, the world was falling apart. And Rav Yisrael Salanter, the great and the holy Rav Yisrael Salanter, who people would look at his face, they saw this is a prince of Hashem. He was impeccable in his appearance. His face radiated Kedusha, the light of Torah, the light of mitzvahs, the light of holiness. He decided he wants to go and change the entire world. We got to stop. There's drama in the streets. There's people going and looting stores. Even the poor Nebuch Louis Vuitton, it was even the windows were crashed over there. What are they going to do? And he decides he's going to go and change the world. And after a short amount of time, Rav Yisrael Salanter realized, this world, no way that I'm going to change this world. Impossible to change this world. Okay, let me go and change my country. I could change my country. Europe, okay, I'll deal with Vilna, I'll deal with Russia, I'll deal with Poland. Let me change the country. Until he realized, of course, we know that the country, too big, too vast, too many opinions, too many different people, too many hang-ups. No way he's going to change his country. He said, okay, I'll change my neighborhood. And he comes to his neighborhood and he goes on his campaign to change the neighborhood. No. The whole town, too many people in the town, 2 Jews, you get 25 different opinions. I can't change them. I'll just change my block. Change my block. How many blocks were there in a small block in Vilna? A few thatched houses. So I have 5 families, 6 families. Let me just change my block. So Rav Yisrael Salanter, no. Each house is another world in and of itself. Each balabas is a balabas. They think they know what's going on in the world. I can't change them. Let me just change my family. A wife, some children. Rav Yisrael Salanter, how many kids did he have? I don't know. Let me just infuse my house with the proper direction, the Kedusha, the holiness, Torah, mitzvahs. After a short amount of time, he said, even my house, I can't even change my house. So let me just worry about myself, said Rav Yisrael Salanter. I'll change myself. Ma Hashem Elokecha, show me what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want from you. Rak liyis Hashem Elokecha. He just wants us to fear Him, to be in awe of Him, uleches b'drachim, and to go in His ways, to love Him, to care for Him, to keep His mitzvahs. I got enough to do for myself, Rav Yisrael Salanter. I'll worry about myself. And of course, we know that Rav Yisrael Salanter put in years and years and years into self-perfection, and eventually Rav Yisrael Salanter became the father of the Musar movement, and the Musar movement ended up having a hashpah, had an impact on the entire Jewish world. You change yourself, you become a different world, you become a different person, you make yourself greater. You can then have a hashpah, you can have an impact on the people that are around you. But if we point the finger at everybody else, oh, they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that, they should be better like this, how can he say this, how can he do that? You won't change anyone, because that's just taking the focus off of the only person in this world that we actually have an ability, if we try, to change. Rav Yisrael Salanter himself said, a man lives a life of 70 years trying to get to know themselves. And at the end of 70 years, they still don't know who they are. Rav Yisrael Salanter was saying, he wasn't only saying it about everybody else, he was saying it that we are so deep. And there's so many layers and levels to our neshamas. There's so much kedusha and holiness that ruminates inside ourselves. You could spend 70 years, 80 years, 100 years, you still won't get to the depth of who you truly are. And the question is, when are we going to start trying? Hashem gave us 10 long weeks already of coronavirus to be locked up inside of our houses, away from everybody and everything that is dear to us. And He wants us to know, are you going to get inside of yourself? Are you going to look inside of your heart? Are you going to start thinking about the lifestyle that you are leading? Is it right? Is it wrong? Be'enei Hashem, in the eyes of Hashem? Do we do those things which are going to elevate us and bring us closer, make the world a better place? Or are we just busy with all of this other stuff that is just around us and we just can't seem to break free from? 10 weeks already. Does it have to be another 10 weeks? Rahman al-Itzlan. So then we go through Shavuos, a one day that we can recognize, you know what makes me different? You know what makes me holy? You know what makes me so much more elevated than the rest of the world? Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Klal Yisrael and He gave us Torah because we said Nasiv and Nishma. We wanted Hashem. We know that it's the best thing in the world. It will change us inside out. We walk away from a Yom Tov, hopefully that we had some insights under the glory of Torah, and we walk into a war zone, a battlefield of terror and total disregard for humanity. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, do you get it yet? Do you get it, what it means that I took you out of Mitzrayim? Do you get it, what it means that Ani ba'atzmi, I myself, I took you out of Egypt so that you would never ever have a slave mentality again in your life, so that you will be able to know what it means to be an Oved Hashem. You are free to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with all of your heart and all your might and all your soul. Do you know that it's only Torah that keeps us normal? My Rosh Hashiva Feldman once said years ago, and the more that I look at the world and I see how true he really is, there's only one vestige of normalcy in the world today. There's only one vestige of mankind that is left in this world where people are moral and they are upstanding and they are honest and they are true and they care about holiness and the right things. Only Klal Yisrael. You're not going to find it any other place in the world. A nation, an entire nation who is willing to live their life even when it's with Mesiras Nefesh. It's hard. It is not easy to be honest all the time. It is not easy to be moral all the time. It is not easy to make a decision when the wrong decision is so much easier than doing what is right. That's easy, that's not easy. But that's the koyach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu invested inside of Klal Yisrael when we stood by our Sinai and we said Nasiv and Nishma, and we were makabel, we accepted the Torah be'ava u'be'yira, with love and with fear and with awe and trepidation and with simcha and with joy. Because we realized this is what makes us a nation like no other. And we have to learn how to be proud of that. We're not like every other nation in the world. The pasuk says we're not allowed to go in the ways of the goyim, of the nations of the world around us. We're supposed to act differently, to talk differently, to behave differently, to go to different places on our internet differently than the rest of the world. When there is pandemic and there is crisis and there's destruction that goes on around the world, how are we supposed to react? Not like the chukas hagoyim, not like the rest of the world. Sitting there glued, looking at everything that's going on, hearing all the nivel peh in our ears, looking at all the inappropriate words that are written on the walls, seeing the damage and the devastation. You think that it's healthy for a person to see people go and kick in the windows of police cars and smash people in the head? You think that's a good thing for your eyes and your neshama to see? The eyes are the windows to the soul. That means that whatever you are watching with your eyes, it's going inside of you. And it's becoming a thick layer of schmutz on top of your neshama. Is it good? It's not good. And it's not good that there are religious websites that are sending out these videos and these messages with everything that is there. You need to know what's going on. Listen what's going on in the world today. You have to see the pictures and the images. I remember once somebody was Mishpacha, the Rav Moshe Feinstein. He told us that Rav Moshe Feinstein obviously did not have a television in his house. It's a given. Rav Moshe did not have a television in his house. And it was 1969, whatever it was, the Apollo landing on the moon. And so everybody kept telling him, Rav Moshe, man is going to the moon. And it's going to be broadcast on TV. They're going to show man landing on the moon. So the story goes, of course, Rav Moshe didn't have a television in his house. How's he going to see it? But he had some kind of an interest to see what it was that man had gone up into that place called the moon, that this is what everybody was talking about. So there was a person who lived in his apartment building, and he asked, just tell me at the exact moment when it's landing on the moon, I would like to see it. And he went, I'm embarrassed to even tell over the story because it's hard for me to believe that Rav Moshe even cared. But he went in for 1 second, he watched man land on the moon, and he walked back, he went right back to his learning as it was. That's enough. You heard the story, you want to see what's going on, it's enough. And there's no violence over there. And there's no cursing over there. And there's no beating to death over there. There's no immorality over there. It might be a foolish thing that man decides that there's not enough work to do over here in this world. There's not enough tikkun, enough correction that a person has to make in this world. So we'll fly to the moon and we'll soar to new places. There's enough that we have right over here in this world. You don't have to go to the moon. You can go deep into your neshama and you can transcend different worlds altogether, much vaster and much higher up than the moon itself. But he saw for 1 second and then he walked away and he went right back to his learning. How many hours are we going to spend watching right now? How much are we going to be gripped and seized with fear as we see the atrocities that are taking place in America right now? How much? Don't spend time. You're worth more than that. Have more self-respect for the nation that just walked away from Shavuos yesterday, that we received the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Remember Rabbi Yossi, who said, if it wouldn't be for the Torah that was given, I would be like any other Joe on the street. You'd be like anybody else. You'd be any other Rebecca and Leah and Lisa and this and Miriam and Mary that's on the street. You'd be like anybody else. But we're not like anybody else because we have Torah. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted us up and He raised us up. And He said, Lo seilechu bechukas hagoyim. Don't walk in the ways of the nations around you. Don't learn and become part of them, which is hard for us in America because it's so pervasive and it's all over the world and it's every place that we turn, every place that we go. It's hard to stay focused. It's hard to know emes from sheker, right from wrong all the time. It is hard. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to try. He wants us to spend the necessary amount of effort that is needed in order to be dignified in our ruchnias, to give credit, to give honor, to give the dignified glance and look and appreciation and protection that our neshama deserves. If you have a diamond, you don't throw it into the mud. If you have a diamond, you don't go out on a boat and toss it off the side of the ship and let it go down, you'll never get it again. Because it's valuable, it's precious, it's glimmering, it's sparkling, it's worth a lot of money. Maybe it's something that's been in the family for decades or generations. It has sentimental value to it. No way that you're going to get rid of it. No way that you're going to sell it. No way. So why are we so quick to sell our neshama for something so cheap as 10 videos about the riots going on in Los Angeles? Why are we care so little about our Kedusha that we're willing to spend hours glued to the television watching all the horrible things? Why do you sit there for hours and say Tehillim? There's many people that are frightened, many people who almost lost their business completely because of the COVID-19 virus, and now we need a bunch of hooligans to come around and start smashing the windows and stealing the most expensive parts of their business right out of the glass cases. Now they have to go back and file new claims with the insurance company to try to get their feet off the ground over to make a business. Why don't you say Tehillim for them? Why don't you call them and say, Oy vey, I heard that your store was vandalized. What can I do for you? Let me come down and help you clean up the glass. Let me make a donation to your business or to your family over here so you can put bread on the table for the next week. Nebuch, I feel so bad for you. That's called positive. That's called doing something that is worthwhile in this world, that's going to make a difference. Zaktav Yisrael Salanter, you cannot change the world. Don't even try. But you could change yourself. And we have to start small. And if we begin to change ourselves by becoming more sensitive to the people that are around us, by limiting our exposure to the negative messages that are being blasted all day long on the televisions, on our phones, on the websites, if we'll become more protective of our ruchnius, of our spirituality, and not try to follow in the ways of the nation that we are a part of over here, then in fact we will find that we are creating a better world that is around us. And we will become people that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I am so happy that I told them that they're the Mamleches Kohanim B'Goy Kadosh, they are the nation of high priests. They are the glorious nation that received Torah. They are the Goy Kadosh. They are a nation that is holy. There's a lot of Goyim in this world, but they are not Kadosh. Only Klal Yisrael is the Goy Kadosh. Only we are the ones that are the holy nation. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like we mentioned several times before Shavuos, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looks and he sees Klal Yisrael going through difficulties, through the challenges of life, through the atrocities of society around us, the virus and the riots and all the different things in between. And he sees that we continue to cling to our Torah. We continue to cling to the ways of what it means to be a Jew. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he gathers all of his Palmal Yedilei, all of his holy angels that are up there. He says, Chazu banai chavivai, look at my beloved children. With everything that is going on in the world, it's so easy to be drawn after it. Nevertheless, they don't stop learning and keeping and breathing and living Torah. And that's why I gave it to them at Har Sinai, because I knew already thousands of years ago they would live their lives appropriately and accordingly, even when the situation and the tensions of the world around them would be antithetical to the pure and the simple and the world of Kedusha, of Ruchnius, that the Jewish people are supposed to live. Chazu banai chavivai. We don't want to be worthy of knowing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is gathering the Malachim, the angels, and he's looking in our homes right now and he's saying, look at my beloved children. Look how they're working on themselves. Look how they are not pressing the button on that website. Look how they're not pressing the remote control over there on their TV that has 700 channels so they could just watch all different angles of what's going on. Look how careful they're being to make sure that they're doing something that is beneficial for the world. And that is that if you will say Tehillim, if you will do chesed, if you will work on a midah, if you will learn the laws of Shmiras HaLashon, if you will guard your mouth from Lashon Hara, if you will go and help somebody else who's in their time of need right now because they are suffering under the conditions which took place on Shavuos itself, as we are becoming malachim, we're becoming angels, the world is diving down into the plunges of bestiality and of animalistic tendencies. Let us understand just how precious and how glorious and the bracha that we have of being a full-fledged member of Klal Yisrael. And don't underestimate the koyach, the potential, and the powers and the abilities that you have within you to rise above. Even though, again, I know because I'm human like everybody else is. It is very luring out there in the world. And it's easy to get drawn into what's out there, especially if it's religious websites and religious people that are telling, oh, you got to see this video. You got to see this video. Boom, 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 WhatsApp. Boom, 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 WhatsApp. You got to see this. I have to see it? Why are you telling me what I have to see? Why are you deciding what's good for my ruchnius? You don't know my neshama. You don't know what is best for my kedusha, for my ruchnius, for my yiras shamayim. I would suffice to say, I would be guaranteed to say that those videos and those WhatsApp videos and those signs that we see of Rabbi Bess's shul with foul language sprawled all across, why are you sending it to me? I don't need to see those words. Just tell me, Rabbi Bess's shul was vandalized. Nebuch, it's a terrible thing. Tell me that this store was vandalized and was broken into. It's a horrible thing. Do I need to see it? Do my children have to take my phone? Do they have to see that? I don't think so. I don't think that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. I don't think at all that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Rather, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, I don't know what Hashem wants. I'm just telling you what I think. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to appreciate the Kedusha that we are coming from Maimon Har Sinai, that we answer to a higher authority, that we live a different existence, what the world is capable of doing and what would be, we would say, okay for them to see and okay for them. It's not good for them either. Beautiful Maisa, Rav Mendel Kaplan, one of the unknown Gedolei Yisrael of the previous generations. He went from Europe and he came to America. He was in Chicago for quite some time. I believe that he might have even been the Rebbe of Rabbi Wine when Rabbi Wine was a young boy. Eventually became one of the Rosh Yeshivas in the Philadelphia Yeshiva. And he was a man of tremendous yiras shamayim and a tremendous appreciation of the value of every neshama that there was in this world. And he once came to a mechanic. His car, had to take it into the mechanic shop, to the body shop, whatever it was. And he brings it in, and as he's going to pay after they do the work, he walks into the office and he sees hanging on the office is a poster of a woman who is not dressed appropriately. And this place was owned by Goyim. And you can imagine who's working in the body shop, who's working in the mechanic. We're talking about grubby people filled with oil and with gas and with parts of screws and drivers all day long. They're lying underneath the hood of a car all day long. We're not talking about a high class people over here. We're talking about mechanics. And he walks over with his eyes faced like this. He walks over to the poster and he pulls it down from the wall and he crumbles it up. And says, "Hey Rabbi, what are you doing?" And he said, "You're too good for this. You don't need to see this. You're better than that." For a goy who spends his day with his hands filled with oils and spark plugs and tires and engines under the hood, on the floor, he shouldn't see those things. So why should we see those things? Which means the whole world doesn't have to hear this foul language and see these words plastered all over the place. The whole world doesn't have to watch the horrors that are taking place in the world to see all the violence. You know how bad it is to see a world that defies authority? Because it weakens our own acceptance of the authority of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One of my Rabbeim was once giving a shiur on Chinuch Habanim, and he said that he and his wife were so careful. They never ever spoke badly about the authority of the government. Even if they didn't agree with the president, they would never speak badly about him. They would never put down the police officers and their policies. They never put down the American government, even though some of the things are ridiculous. They would never put it down. You know why? Because when your child hears, "Oh, my parents don't value authority. Oh, my parents think that the president doesn't know what he's talking about. Oh, they don't like what's going on in the amendments over here. They don't appreciate these changes going on over here, or what the governor or the mayor said. Oh, Garcelia." They don't like what he said? So you know what's going to happen to our children? They're going to end up going to yeshiva one day, and the Rosh Yeshiva will say something the child doesn't like. Because that's what happens. No Rebbe can say everything that the child likes. No Rosh Yeshiva is always going to give the shmooze. A mother came to me once, and she said, "Save my son." I said, "How can I save your son? What's the matter?" She said, "Because if his Rosh Yeshiva calls them behemoths one more time in his drasha that he gives, my son's going to go off the derech. He can't handle it anymore." So can every Rebbe say the right word every single time that he gets up to speak? Can he always connect with every kid that's sitting there in the tzibor, in the crowd that's listening? No. So if our children hear us put down authority, the president, the mayor, the governor, they don't know what they're talking about. So guess where it ends up leading to? The Rebbe doesn't know what he's talking about. Menayel thinks he knows what he's talking. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The Rosh Yeshiva, he's a Talmid Chacham, he's 80 years old. He guided tens of thousands of students in his lifetime. Tens of thousands. Built yeshivas, created Kiddush in this world. The Rosh Yeshiva doesn't know what he's talking about. I know what I know what I'm talking about. You put down authority, that's what you get. That's what we get. We have to be so careful. So you think it's healthy for the whole world to see a world that is going mad, defying authority, beating up police officers, blowing up their cars, putting them on fire, saying all the explicatives that are out there on national TV to show that we are going to take justice into our own hands. We don't care what the world is doing. Chas v'chalid, does anybody have to see that? It's bad for everybody. And that's why Mendel Kaplan went and he took down that poster and he said, "You are better than that. Tselem Elokim. They're not Tselem Elokim. Even these behemoths running around the streets, they're not Tselem Elokim. Of course it's Tselem Elokim. But as my Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yaakov Weinberg once told me, it's the hashchasa, the destruction of Tselem Elokim, of the godliness and the godly image that's inside. The destruction. You're not looking at a Tselem Elokim who knows and values and appreciates what they have. You're looking at someone who has totally destroyed the godliness that is inside of them. But perhaps that's one of the messages that we have to take for ourselves during these very painful and uncertain and frightening times. How much have we destroyed the Tselem Elokim, the godliness that is inside of ourselves? How much did we really appreciate Shavuos this year? How much did we read Megillas Rus and see the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice, that this woman, she was a princess. She came from an illustrious family. She's going to follow a Nebuch, broken, widowed, childless woman back into Eretz Yisrael, whose family had run away from taking care of the Jewish people. She's going to come in there, she's going to be a nobody and a nothing. Rus, the princess of Moav, should walk in with Naomi, who is a woman with nothing in her hands. And she said, "I love you, Naomi, and I love your nation. I love your God. I want to become one of you." Does anybody realize the tremendous koyach inside, the tremendous power of the spirit of the neshama that Rus had to make such a legendary decision in this world, which, by the way, brought about a Dovid HaMelech, which brings about Mashiach? Are we awed by Rus? Are we awed by Naomi's amunah that kept going day after day, even though her life fell apart? But she said, "I'm not going to stop going. Hashem loves me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching me. Everything is mida keneged mida. I know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in my life. I'm going back to Eretz Yisrael to live my life the way I should." Did we walk away inspired? I'm so tired. 2 days of Yom Tov. You got off easy. Only 2 days of Yom Tov. And one day was Shabbos. You didn't even have to cook on Shabbos. 2 beautiful days of Yom Tov, to be inspired of the beauty of Torah, of what it means to be a Jew, of a Nasa v'Nishma, to recognize how different we are than the rest of the world, and it's only Torah that makes us different. What? It's our nose that makes us different? Because we have brown hair and blue and brown eyes, that's why we're different than the rest of the world? Because we're not Aryan race? No. We are different because we stood by our Sinai 3,500 years ago. We accepted Torah upon ourselves. No other nation was willing to do such a thing. And Hashem said, because of that, you have a schus forever. The Torah is always going to be a part of you and your children and your grandchildren, ad soif kol hadoros, until the end of all generations. We appreciate that we thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Shavuos. Thank you for making me. He could have made you a person who thinks that Black Lives Matter. He could have made you a person who thinks that standing on a police car and smashing with your foot is the way to go. He could have made you a person, let's say he made you the best, he could have made you the President of the United States. When we say a brach in the morning, Baruch atah Hashem shelo asani goy, we're making a blessing. Thank you Hashem, I'm not a goy that what? Even the gresta goy, the greatest non-Jew that's out there in the world, with prestige and with power and with highfalutin flout and everything like that. As great as he seems to be in the eyes of the people, compared to a Jew who sits in his house quietly, she says Tehillim, she does chesed, she's a tzanua, she has yirah shamayim, she davens for her children, she has a kosher kitchen, she keeps Yom Tiv, she keeps Shabbos. That's the greatest schus in the entire world. You're not a billionaire with money? You're not famous with your picture plastered all over the billboards? They don't talk about you on talk shows, and no one's going to your opening night of the movie that you're the star of with your face all over the place? Baruch Hashem, you're not. Because Baruch atah Hashem shelo asani goy, I'm not like that. I'm a Yid. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me a Jew. And we chose this life. When we stood by Maimon Har Sinai and we said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you are offering us the Torah, there is nothing greater in the entire world than that. And the Malachim themselves cried out when they heard Klal Yisrael say, Naaseh v'nishma, Migale Rozu, who revealed the secret to Klal Yisrael? Who told them that this is the secret to being successful in Ruchnius? That you are makabel, you accept upon yourself, and everywhere from that is going to be straightforward. Who told them that secret? It's called the Neshama Tahora, the pure soul that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has implanted inside each and every one of us. And if only we will recognize that, and we will realize that, and we will savor that, and we will treasure that, then we'll realize that we have an ability to change ourselves. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we look around the world, which has gone mad, absolutely mad, total hashchasa, destruction of tselem Elokim, of the godliness that resides inside the soul of every living man, woman, and child in this world. We have to be honest, and we have to look in ourselves, and we have to ask, how much have we been accountable for destroying the tselem Elokim, the godliness inside of ourselves? How much do we appreciate the tselem Elokim, the godliness? Do we appreciate that we have Torah? Do we appreciate that we have mitzvahs? Do we appreciate the treasure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us? And He didn't give it over and hand it over on a silver platter to any other nation in the world, which means that we are different. And then we'll be Seilechu b'chukas hagoyim, and then we just follow in the footsteps of the nations of the world. We get seized with panic and fear, and we sit there with our eyes bulging out. Terrible, terrible, terrible. Ay. Terrible, terrible, terrible. What's going to be? Is that our reaction? Is that what Hashem wants of us right now? HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves action. He loves us to respond. You know why Hatzalah got in so much trouble here in Los Angeles, California? Because they were responding much faster than the emergency vehicles of the hospitals and the fire department. And they made the fire department and the hospitals look bad. Because when they would get the call for someone that was not well and it was an emergency, the Hatzalah member left in the middle of his Shemon Esrei, and he ran to his car and he jumped inside and he ran to go save somebody's life. And by the time they were pumping CPR into the person, suddenly 5 minutes later, here comes the fire department. Oh, that Orthodox Jew got there before me. Here comes the ambulance coming from the hospital. Oh, that Hasidic fellow with his payas hanging down, he got there before me. So they decided in California, you know what, Hatzalah can't have so much responsibilities and so much freedom to do what they want anymore because they're making us look bad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves first responders to the site. That when there is destruction and there is hardship and there is challenges and there is inexplainable things going on in the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the first response. Who's that going to be? Not the Chukas HaGoyim, not everybody else is sitting around their TVs watching what's going on. Only going to be Klal Yisrael. And only Klal Yisrael will understand that if there's so much horror, so much unconscionable actions that are taking place, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is begging us to be mizbainin, to meditate inside of ourselves and see what can we do to make ourselves better. How can we become loftier? How do we raise ourselves up and live a life that is going to be a nachas in the eyes of Hashem? Say Tehillim. Do chesed. Call one of those businesses where you know the owner, even if you don't know the owner, and let him know, Imay anoichi betzara, I am with you in your pain. Do you need help cleaning up all the smashed glass? Do you need help putting all of the items back on the shelves? Do you need help filing? Maybe the person is more of an immigrant and their English is not so good. Do you need help filing an insurance claim so that you can get paid back for all the damages that are here? I'll help you. Do a chesed with another Jew. They already started a fund, a chesed fund, because 75% of the stores that were destroyed in the city were Jewish stores. Do you understand what that means? 75% of La Brea and Beverly, Jewish places. And they were barely making ends meet with the COVID virus for the last 2.5 months. And now are they going to survive? They just opened their doors last week. So they made a chesed fund. You can go find it. Maybe you should donate $18 or $36. Or maybe you can afford $360 to help a fellow Jew. But if it's only $1 that you can afford, your $1 is worth thousands in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Give what you could afford. If we will do what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to do, that pushes away the darkness and the tragedy and the heinous actions of a world that has literally lost it and gone mad and has destroyed their Tzelem Elokim. We cannot control the world. We cannot control our crazy country. We cannot control our neighborhoods, which are infiltrated with so much shmutz and tumah and ra. We can't even control our own families. But we can control ourselves. And we can make ourselves better people. And stronger people and more dedicated people to the cause of being the Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying and glorifying HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name here in this world. And Hashem keeps screaming it out louder and louder and louder. The Chavetz Chaim writes that from the time that Nevuah, that prophecy, left the world, there's no longer a Navi, there's no longer a prophet that is able to come and to criticize Klal Yisrael. There's no longer Nevi'im that can admonish us for our behavior. There's no longer a prophet that will come with his X-ray vision and say over the Devar Hashem, the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and teach us what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us. So what's going to wake us up, says the Chavetz Chaim? Right? The Heilige Chavetz Chaim, the holy words of our sage, the Chavetz Chaim, and that is that when Hashem brings natural disaster on this world, unusual things that are outside the realm of logic, you should know that that's the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking to his nation, to startle us and wake us up. COVID virus is startling. It's supposed to wake us up, but maybe after 2.5, 3 months already, we still didn't get the message. And we walked out of a Yom Tov of Shavuos and we still didn't get the message. So now the world has to go literally bonkers, crazy beyond belief, with such a disregard for authority, for police power, for supervision, with anger and hate and disgust in the voices and the eyes of each and every one that is doing horrible things. And by the way, it must be pointed out, these are not just black people that are responding to the atrocious crime that was committed where a black man was probably killed in a very racist way, which is an atrocity. Nobody should stand for such things. But there's plenty of other people in the world, white and other ethnicities, that are running around, joining in the looting and joining in the horror and the hurting that's going on. Because that's the nature of this world that we're living in right now. Only we can rise above that. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll just keep shaking the world. I'll just keep shaking the world. And let's start to hear the message. And let's, Be'ez Hashem, be misbayin and look deep inside of our neshamas, deep inside our tzelem Elokim, our godliness, and ask ourselves, how much of the tzelem Elokim have we destroyed, and how can we repair the godliness that is inside of us? If Be'ez Hashem, we will hear the call, and we'll take control of our lives, and we will do what is necessary to make ourselves better people, then with siyata d'shemai, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu certainly will give us, Hashem would never give us a challenge that we cannot overcome. He would never make the goal too far beyond our grasp that we can't attain it. Because whatever we need to accomplish, Hashem will give us siyata d'shemai, heavenly assistance, to be able to achieve and reach our goals. And Be'ez Hashem, if we do that, then we will see an end to all the tragedy that goes on in the world, to all the pain and all the suffering that is taking place in Klal Yisrael, to the disregard of humanity that is happening on the streets of Los Angeles and the other 12 or 14 states which have been vandalized with violence and with hatred and with all of the anger that takes place. And Be'ez Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see down inside of our hearts, inside of our neshamas, our souls, and He'll realize that there's a nation that appreciates what it means to be the Am HaNivchar, the chosen people, to appreciate what it means to have a tzelem Elokim, a godly soul inside of us. And in that zechus im yirtz Hashem, He'll rescue all of us from this situation that the world finds itself just spinning out of control. It'll bring us all together with our families and our communities and all of Klal Yisrael from the Arba Kanfos Ha'aretz, the four corners of the earth, singing and dancing b'simcha, with joy, with ruchnius, with yirah shamayim, with Kabbalah, with accepting upon ourselves HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Torah, in Yerushalayim HaKodesh b'imheira v'yameinu. You're welcome. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi Horowitz.
You're welcome.
Amazing.
You're welcome.
Amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi Horowitz.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good day, everyone.